Daniel 2:45. He says, "For as much as thou sawest the stone was cut out of the mountains without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known unto the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure." Daniel is going on record here saying, not only can I tell you what the dream is, I can tell it to you definitively, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what separates God's authoritative word from man's assumptions. Because we're human, there are times you have to say, I don't know for sure, but this is the way I think, and this is how it looks. But when it comes to what God said in plain English, you just give it out just like he said it, and it's authoritative. I know that there are certain things he says, and those are a fact. If you don't receive him, you'll die in your sin. That's a fact. He said it over and over. So, I mean, you can be just as authoritative and dogmatic as what Daniel was when he says, this dream is sure, and the interpretation is certain. We got in Deuteronomy 10. Deuteronomy 10 will be in verse 16. Daniel says, I like the phrase he uses. He says, the great God hath made known to the king. That just sounds, he's talking to a king who is a king of kings, but yet he says there's one bigger than you. The great God has made known to the king. Deuteronomy 10, verse 16. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart. Okay, so that's something that they can always be doing. This is not a once and done. This is a continual thing that even us Christians have to do. And be no more stiff-necked, for the Lord your God is God of gods. That is, there are little gods. There sure are. Israelites knew all about them. They were all around them. Little images and stone carvings that people had exalted as though it was a god, and a demon came down and possessed it. I think that was literal. He's a god of those gods. When they saw it in Egypt, God came down there and beat up all their gods through all the 10 plagues. He called them all out and beat them up. Verse 17, for the Lord your God is a God of gods and Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons, nor taketh reward. That is, you won't find a bigger, better, more scary, and more gracious God than ours. He's all categories you can come up with. He's the top of the heap. 1 Chronicles 16. First Chronicles 16:25. I love the balance. Usually when you truly exalt God, you've got to exalt him balanced. You don't just shove one side up. Both sides of God are just as true. 1 Chronicles 16:25. For great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. He also is to be feared above all gods. Now that's what was going on. They were scared of their gods. Their God, the little case G gods, were cruel. And that was by design. Religions do the same thing. Religions want to scare you. They want to put you in bondage that if you don't do this or do that, then you don't get the goodies and you're not really in, and you can't know if you're saved if you're not, doing this or that. That's not my God, but he says right here, he's to be feared above those phony gods. Look at it in Psalm 135. Psalm 135, verse 5. He says, for I know that the Lord is great, and that our Lord is above all gods. Too many times the Bible mentions gods lowercase for there not to be gods lowercase. There are, and this world is turning to them now faster than I've ever known. Wicca is taking over now. All of the cartoons and everything are making light as though it's no big deal, like Harry Pothead. of all the witchcraft and sorcery. And you got to smoke your marijuana and lick a toad. I mean, really, that's the way they're going. That's the garbage they're getting into. Revelation 19. Yeah, what was that woman that was taking some kind of toad venom? Yeah, yeah, toad venom. That's right. That's right. Oh no. Yeah, and they've got little crystals, and every crystal has a different color and a different god that's associated with it. That's the mess that this world's going for. Yeah,
HD TV that you think would be just remodeling and stuff, and you
yeah,
can watch the stuff on that too.
yep. It's just the people. Revelation 19, verse 17. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying, all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God. Even for the animals, he's a great God. He feeds them. He makes sure they get food, and he kills off cats for me. And I mean, verse 18, that you may. No, that was perfect. That you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. The great God is great to not only man, but to everything he's created. If he created it, he cares for it and takes care of it. What's sure and certain for a man, all humans, is this: he has a future he can count on. Pure destruction. Every man is destined for pure destruction. The only way you get out of that is if you get a substitute. Yeah, I got a substitute. Jesus Christ took the destruction for me, so I don't have to.
Amen.
He drank the cup of God's wrath on my case, so I don't have to take it. Psalm chapter 21. Now, he's a great God, but what makes him great that's so far above what we could be is holiness and righteousness. It doesn't matter how good you get, you never achieve that level. And he's only going to associate with pure righteousness. Therefore, he's got to destroy anything that's the opposite. And therefore, I'm glad I got Jesus, because I could never qualify, and you work yourself to death trying to. If you're going to try, most people don't even try. Psalm 21, verse 9. Thou shalt make them a fiery oven in the time of thine anger. The Lord shall swallow them up in his wrath, and the fire shall devour them. That's hell and the lake of fire. That's the destiny for every man is appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment, and then he gets to die again. This hell and death are cast into the lake of fire. That becomes death number 2. Daniel 2, verse 46. Daniel 2:46. Everything's going good, and this will be for us too. God has given Daniel the ability to speak on his behalf, and God intended the king to get this dream. God gave it to him. And then God gave Daniel what exactly he should say to the king. And you got to be careful, because you'll find this. You'll be talking to somebody and God will tell you exactly what to say, and you'll know it's coming direct from God, and you'll remember verses you hadn't thought of in years, and then immediately follow right behind that with this very stunt Daniel does. Daniel 2:46. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. You know, it's easy to fall when you've done something right. The second you get on the right track, the devil gets excited, because you're the target now. He'll put a pitfall right in front of you. And you'll be so happy and excited that you'll just be walking without looking. And there you fall. Daniel doesn't tell him, get up off your face and, only worship God. No, he just lets him sit there. He said, no, worship me a while. It feels pretty good. You were trying to kill me and all my buddies just a little while ago. I think you need a good humbling. Right there on your face is a good spot for you. Now, that's what I'd be thinking. But that wouldn't have been the right thing to do. Look at what the Bible says when this happens. Acts chapter 10. Acts 10. Many times, it's normal for a man to try to worship something, and usually it's another man. Acts 10:25. Acts 10:25. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter took him up, saying, stand up, I myself also am a man. He said, I'm just like you. I had to walk to get here. God just beat me up 3 times before I got here. It's hard to forget those things when you feel like you're being used. Our head just swells so easily when we think we're something special. Revelation 22. Revelation 22. Revelation 22, verse 8. Now, this is the only place in the book of Daniel you can point out Daniel has a problem. That's pretty good. If somebody could get to your life and say, there's only one spot we could find where he had a problem. But I think he gets it fixed right here. Revelation 22, verse 8. And I, John, saw these things and heard them. And when I had heard and seen, I fell down to worship before the feet of the angel which showed me these things. Then saith he unto me, see thou do it not, for I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren, the prophets, and of them which keep the sayings of this book, worship God. I've showed you before, I think that was actually Daniel. I think Daniel is the one who comes back to give these twice. This happens in the book of Revelation. And I think that's because he messed it up one time in the book of Daniel, so God gave him a do-over. And this time he gets it right. He also tells Daniel to seal these things up to the time of the end. Well, the book of Revelation is the time of the end. So then he unseals it for John. Romans chapter 3. Romans 3, verse 23, the verse everybody has memorized. He says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Now, we use that as a salvation verse, and it's a good one for a salvation verse. But that verse never ends. Every day you could wake up and repeat that one to that guy that looks back at you in the mirror. Yeah. Because we're sinners by nature. One day we'll drop this flesh and the problems are all gone. And then we won't have to worry about sin anymore. But until then, Daniel got it wrong. Let's not get it wrong. Daniel 2, look at verse 47. Daniel 2:47. And the king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of lords and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldst reveal this secret. I've got to look at something. Oh, I'm right there. Yes. Okay. This is more problems that Daniel didn't catch. Once you allow your standard to slip in one spot, it will fall quickly, one right after the next. Daniel allowed the king to serve him. Now he allows the king to demote God. He's not a God. He's the God. 3 times, 3 strikes, he gets it wrong. A God, a Lord, a revealer. No, sir, he's the. There's only one. Then he goes another step further. While he's got 3 strikes, he might as well add one more to the party just to be safe. He says that thou couldst reveal. Daniel didn't reveal this. God did. God revealed it. And so that's the slippery slope. Look at Psalm 136. Psalm 136, verse 2. He says, "Oh, give thanks unto the God of gods, for his mercy endureth forever." Daniel had the book of Psalms. He probably had more of them memorized than I do, which that wouldn't take much. And I wish he had done this. I wish he had just quoted him this verse. Give thanks to the God of gods. That would have been applicable to Nebuchadnezzar. He had gods. And he says, for his mercy endureth forever. God allowed you to know what's going to happen in the end times so you can prepare. But he could have preached that sermon and he didn't. Revelation 1. Revelation 1, verse 5. Notice the definite articles in this verse. And from Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness, not a faithful witness, and the first begotten of the dead, and the prince of the kings of the earth, unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood. That's God. That's who he is. That's the way you talk about him. You don't demote him to he's one of. No, sir, he's way over all. Look at it in Daniel 2. Daniel 2, verse 6. Daniel 2, verse 6. I'm not going to ascribe too much blame to Daniel. However, I know what human nature's like. Here's what may have been in his mind, so he doesn't want to offend Nebuchadnezzar too much. I mean, he's just told him he's going to get smashed to smithereens. Let's not overdo it. Daniel 2, verse 6. Here's Nebuchadnezzar. But if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. Exactly what he just did. Maybe in the back of his mind is, I don't want to make him too mad. I did tell him the truth, but I don't want to make him too mad. I got some things due me. Now, I'm not saying that was in his mind. I'm just saying that's human nature. Human nature would be thinking that. Daniel 5, look at verse 17. Daniel 5, verse 17. When Daniel's thinking the opposite, we sure know it. Daniel 5, 17. Here he's talking to Belshazzar. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy reward to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known unto him the interpretation. That would have been a better thing to say. When Daniel's thinking it, he writes it, or the Bible reveals it, and it was missing in the interpretation to Nebuchadnezzar. Now, I'm not saying that that was his train of thought. It would have been mine, and probably yours. Daniel 2, verse 48. Nebuchadnezzar is a man of his word. So far. You wouldn't want to count on that. Daniel 2, verse 48. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors, and over all the wise men of Babylon. He keeps talking about Babylon, Babylon. I don't know that I want my name mixed in the same sentence over and over with Babylon, Babylon. Babylon is a bad place. Babylon is three things. It's a city, it's a kingdom, and it's a province. All of those rolled into one. We know another place just like it. The Vatican. I'll give you the official wiki on it. Officially, the Vatican City is a city-state. Is landlocked, independent country, city, and state, enclaved within Rome. It's both a whole country, a whole city, and considered a state. because it's just like Babylon, where Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel were, and it'll be the same thing in the future, a mystery Babylon. These cities are female. Babylon is said in no uncertain terms in the Old Testament to be or in Revelation to be female, the mother of harlots. Joshua 17 verse 11. Joshua 17:11. And Manasseh, okay, y'all know who that is? That's one of the brothers. Is Manasseh male or female? Male. Had in it Issachar. Issachar, male or female? Male. And in Asher, Bethshean and her towns. Who's the her? Correct. The city is the female. And then you go through it, every town is referred to as a female all the way through. That it doesn't end there. There's good ones too. Galatians 4 verse 26. Paul was still learning Southern in this verse, but he's close. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. Not you all, us all. Jerusalem is referred to as female. The final big city that ends on this globe is going to, or the wicked one, the globe we're on now, is Babylon, the wicked female, the Jezebel of the Old Testament that resurfaces in the end times. Daniel 2, look at verse 49. Daniel 2:49. I'll tell you what Ruckman says about this, which means zero to me, but it might to y'all. The city of Rome was originally called Saturnalia, probably. The city of Saturn. I don't know what Saturn has to do with anything, but yeah. They don't sell Saturns anymore. Went out of business. Daniel 2:49. Then Daniel requested of the king. The king has just donated all of this great stuff to him, and he's given him great honor and all of these things that he was promised. Now Daniel says, I got him where I want him. I'm going to do something good with the position I've been given. You know, you can do a little evil in order to do some good. Daniel 2:49. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So he got his buddies promoted. Sounds good. But what did they... that was not a God promotion. That was a Daniel promotion. Now, it didn't say that... The Bible is clear. When God is behind something, he lets you know he's behind it. If God had wanted those boys promoted, he would have done it one way or the other. And probably the stunt that's going to show up in the next chapter is the way he would have promoted them anyway. But Daniel jumped the gun. It says in the last phrase in the verse there that Daniel sat in the gate of the king. You'll find this all through the Bible. This is the way they did it in the old times. It's like the city hall or the governmental center was in the gate. That's where people came in and tried their cases. If you had a hard question, you would come to the wise men that sat in the gate. And I don't know how you qualified to sit in the gate, but if you were there, you were considered a judge, a ruler. Look at it in Genesis 22. Genesis 22, verse 17. Talking of Abraham. Genesis 22:17. That in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemy. Worked for Daniel. That's exactly where he is, right in the gate. Now, he didn't request that spot. God saw to it the king gave him that spot. and he's right where he's supposed to be. Genesis 24, verse 60. Genesis 24:60. And they blessed Rebekah and said unto her, Thou art our sister. Be thou the mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them. So that was one thing that would happen when a king would come in and conquer a city. He would sit down in the gate as though he was the highest authority in the town and the city. That gate meant some powerful position. Esther 2, verse 19. Esther 2:19. And when the virgins were gathered together the second time, then Mordecai sat in the king's gate. There's Mordecai in a position of authority. You know, that's the thing that made Haman so mad, was there was one guy over there. He was in a good position. He had the ear of the king, and yet he couldn't stand him. But he couldn't remove him from his spot. He had a plan how he was going to get rid of him, and we saw that backfire. Look at Isaiah 24. Isaiah 24:12. He says, In the cities left desolation, and the gate is smitten with destruction. Now, we would think he's just saying that he's leveled the city. That's true. But he wouldn't need the second statement to say the city has been destroyed. There's something special about the gate being destroyed. That's the place you could go get wisdom, get understanding from the judges, from the wise men, would come sit in the gate. He says the gate ain't there anymore. There's nobody wise in town no more. Jeremiah 1, verse 15. Here's the kings coming in to take a foreign country or a foreign city, and this is what they do. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdom of the north, saith the Lord, and they shall come, and they shall set every one his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against the city of Judah. So there the enemy comes in and sits down in the gate. That is, the judge and the wise men now are the rulers from a foreign country. Exactly what's going on in our world today. It's the heathens who have appointed themselves the counselors of Christians. Because you can count on it, if your kid goes to school somewhere, they might be saved, but if they go to a public school, the thing that's being pushed is they need a counselor. They need to go see, a therapist, and they probably need a double session because their parents are mean to them. And so now you've got the heathen sitting in the gate telling what the kid is supposed to view as wisdom. Matthew 18. I didn't tell you right. Matthew 16, verse 18. Matthew 16, verse 18. Now we can see that the world's wisdom is being shoved down our throat and the children's throats. This is the promise that you have to hold on to. Matthew 16, 18. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against them. Now, the gate is where they got wisdom. If that gate is from hell, like the ones that's in this world that we're in, the world's wisdom cannot prevail against the true wisdom of God. Now, we've got the book right here. If we'll use this wisdom right here, it cannot prevail, even though the world's supposed logic is so appealing. We've got something much bigger. We've got a great God. All right, we'll stop it there, and we'll pick up there next week at chapter 3.
Like there's a gate here.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Seeing that, especially with young people, where they get so much lost in translation because they don't get the word and they don't get that right kind of feeding to that mind.
I didn't put the references in there, but if you look up gate, you'll find it in Ezekiel. He picked me up by a lock of the hair and took me to the inner gate that looketh toward Jerusalem, to the seat that, the seat of jealousy. And you read that whole passage and you'll find that it's referring to the mind. And in the mind, there is a seat of jealousy that causes jealousy. You're supposed to have it. Everybody has it. There's no way around it. In your mind is a seat designed for jealousy. The flesh and the spirit are at enmity one against the other. One is going to be jealous of the other. You choose who sits on the throne. That seat of jealousy is designed to make the other one unhappy. And if the spirit's happy, the flesh ain't, and vice versa. But that's in Ezekiel 8, Ezekiel 8:3. Yeah, the whole passage there. Yeah.